Get ready.
Hi, this is Kaz Riley, and this is the Hypnosis 247 Live Network, and Trancing in the Sheets with me today. I have a very, very special guest that I'm very excited to introduce to you. But before I do, just to let you know that when you join the network, you will send a $200 travel card. All you need to do is go and find that in your email, and you can activate it so that you can use it for discounts on holidays and hotels and all that kind of wonderful stuff. And also, if you'd like to know more information about how travel cards can help your business, then just put the word solutions in the box below and we'll send you out some information. So, trancing in the sheets with me today, I have a lady that has been truly inspirational to me for my entire hypnosis career. I had the privilege of training back with her in 2004 in Hypnofertility, and from that moment on, it absolutely transformed how I worked, my practice, and certainly all the work that I do has fallen out of that very work that the very wonderful Lynsi Eastburn created all those years ago. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It's such a privilege to have you, and to be able to say thank you very publicly. I know I tell this story a lot, but to actually say to you in person, thank you so much for all the work that you did, because my work has fallen out of that.
Well, thank you, Kaz. Thank you so much, and I'm so happy to be here.
So Hypnofertility, you know, now is a very common name. I think most people now know what Hypnofertility is. You have Hypnofertility International. You have 2 books that have been published. There's It's Conceivable and The 3 Keys to Conception. Is that the right title? Which I know thousands of my clients have got copies of those books. And I suspect lots of other people. And it's been published in many, many different languages. I think recently in Japanese, is that right?
In Japanese, and it's almost finished in German and Dutch and Hebrew.
Wow. So, you know, Hypnofertility International truly is an international organization. And the hypnofertility methodology has helped thousands of couples conceive naturally as well. In fact, mainly naturally, sometimes in conjunction with IVF, but more naturally than anything, helping people get over those mental blocks. And obviously this is trancing in the sheets, and one of those things that often happens with couples is that they kind of lose their kind of connection, don't they? They kind of, sex becomes very mechanical, and all the research shows that actually having great sex is actually quite key to aiding conception, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yep.
So for you, what kind of things do you see? What are the common things that you see with relationships with regards to couples that are having fertility treatment or are trying to conceive?
Well, as far as that goes, definitely the intimacy issues that really stem from timed intercourse. And a lot of the dads-to-be, if we can call them that, they have issues with just trying to perform on cue. And a lot of my clients are busy, they travel, they spend a lot of time that is career related, and they're not in the same place at the same time. And they're, watching their wristwatch or their clock, or they've got, a stopwatch going. And so that can definitely be an issue for them. And then not to mention, the invasiveness of some of the medical treatments, which can actually be painful. And then sometimes they're told, abstain for now, or you can go ahead and try in this little window. And it really, it's not fun anymore. It's not intimate. It's more, something that it's a chore they have to do.
And I think with that as well, it just adds into the stress of fertility treatment, isn't it? Or trying to get pregnant. It's this back to this thing of trying to get pregnant. So, you know, people, as you say, it's the ovulation sticks that suddenly appear, the kind of trying to, you know, people literally organizing their windows, their time, and we will try and conceive at this point. So it's the whole kind of making love aspect and connection, you know, just goes flying out of the window. And then, of course, so do their chances quite often of a successful conception, because all of those hormones and things play into how likely a conception is likely to be. And I guess with hypnosis, that's part of de-stressing them. That's what we do, isn't it? Is to help them to relax enough and to believe. I think they stop believing that they're going to get pregnant, you know, in that way as well. That's it, isn't it? We work a lot with belief in bodies, and also a lot of people are so, you know, they are very driven and career, you know, they've got the careers and things, and especially as women, we're told we should do that now. But then when it comes to wanting a family, we're told that we're leaving it too late, and our bodies are kind of body clocks ticking away. So what kinds of things are you addressing generally with hypnofertility? What are the kind of common themes that pop up all the time?
Well, a lot of it, there's guilt and regret, because a lot of women have been building careers, and they take the responsibility. Women tend to take all the responsibility, even when male factor is involved. Women do all the research, you know, they're the ones that decide what treatments they're going to get or who they're going to see. For the most part, like probably 90-95% of the time, they're proactive. Then you've got that personality type that's an achiever, that's a doer, and they don't do so well not being able to do. They can only do so much, and then they have to basically receive that baby. And, you know, even sexually speaking, it's the female part of it is receptive in terms of at least conceiving. We're receiving, and we can get out of balance with that. So when the balance is off, we're just trying to force, and that doesn't help the receptivity. And it also messes with the hormones, as you said, and the sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. We're spending too much time in fight or flight, has all these stressor hormones coursing through the body, and the body itself is going to shut down systems it doesn't deem necessary for survival if we are in fight or flight. So the reproductive system is basically the first to go.
Absolutely. And it's do you find when you explain that to clients that kind of a light bulb kind of goes off, and then they kind of almost gives them permission to start to relax and calm down a bit, because then they see the purpose in slowing down a little bit and allowing themselves to, I guess, relax into hypnosis and things?
Yeah, the nice thing about hypnosis is they don't have to relax to be hypnotized right off the bat, so that takes some pressure off of them, or performance anxiety. So a lot of them try to meditate, and then they just sort of, you can't stop the mind. And so for hypnosis, I'll say that we sort of go in and around. We can go through the back door or up through the basement, or somehow into helping them to create that state of relaxation without actively trying to relax. You know, they'll try to relax and say, I can't relax. And therefore, the harder they try to relax, the worse off they are.
And often I think sometimes they put themselves under so much pressure to relax in the way that people have been taught traditionally what relaxation is. But actually, you know, I know for me, for example, I'm not a person that just sits and relaxes. You know, I kind of do something to relax, or I go for a walk to relax. So it's not necessarily about being still in a chair, is it? And, you know, just kind of, you know, when people talk about trying to switch your mind, always try and do anything, it never works, does it? You know, it's we all know that as hypnotists. But so when clients are there with you, or you're kind of taking them through the process, it's often about kind of, a lot of it's kind of taking away some of the beliefs about often what the medical profession are telling them. We're not saying that the medical profession are wrong, but they come from a different angle than we do. So, you know, we know, don't we, that 35, for example, is not old to be trying to conceive, but the media certainly is telling women that it is, isn't it? So how do you kind of go about combating that?
Yeah, that's an interesting one when you mention the media, because, you know, over the last 20 years, nobody really knew anything about this. infertility in general. And now I've noticed that the plot lines or subplot lines of so many TV shows are about, there's a fertility issue. And so many of the celebrities are talking about that, and there's reality shows in and around this. So it does, I end up saying that we have to dehypnotize people, because now there's this belief that it's not easy to get pregnant. And there's this need to go to the doctor and get permission, whereas we never used to think that way. We decided to stop birth control, or we didn't. And now women are going in for the checkup and to find out if they can have permission. And a lot of times finding something that's wrong, which we wouldn't know about if we weren't looking. And a lot of the issues we have now is because women are under that microscope. When you're getting fertility treatment, everything is monitored.
Well, absolutely. And it's that belief system as well, isn't it? Of, if I have X, then it means I can't, I don't know. I know one that's put out there a lot, and it does have an effect on some people, is polycystic ovaries, isn't it? Where, people are told that they can't have kids. I know I was told that I would never, or I'd really struggle because I got polycystic ovaries. And, you've met both my children, and, there was no, fertility treatment needed there, I think. But my belief system had to change, I think, before that, my body had kind of allowed that. Where our mind goes, our body follows. And certainly with conception, I think, especially for high achieving people, that's particularly so, isn't it? Because those belief systems are very, very strong, the ones that drive us, either to be able to do something or actually not to be able to, which is, yeah. And then the press goes up, doesn't it? Sorry?
It can be really black and white to that person, for sure.
So it's yeah. So, I mean, what's some of the, I know you have lots of wonderful, interesting, inspirational, all kinds of stories that, you've come across with your clients over the years. What is the one that in particularly stands out as kind of like just a really inspirational story for anybody that's kind of feeling like that at the moment, that they can't get pregnant? Or,
well, yeah, you're right. So many stories, so little time. One in particular was kind of neat. That woman, she was a medical doctor, and she was up for a fellowship, and she'd had all sorts of issues getting pregnant, so she put everything off for a year, and hadn't gotten pregnant, and had all sorts of failed treatments, and finally decided to, take the fellowship, get started, get back to things, hired a donor, got something like 20 some odd, eggs from the donor. And after she got her life all back together, got pregnant naturally and had her little baby. So, and she was in her 40s, she was sort of your typical, if you will, I hate the word older, but, older woman who has been very career oriented, is very successful, who's very much an achiever. And so even when we try hard to do something, so even if we, how you try to relax, or you try to take time off and not do anything, but the whole time you're trying to not do anything, which is, well, you're doing something and trying to not do something. So that's not conducive to fertility any more than driving yourself really hard and actually, working, taking over a company, or working in the medical field. Yeah.
It's very true. I've often said to clients, the thing is, most people, when the moment they actually get pregnant, they don't know. They're completely unaware. They may be shopping in in the supermarket, or they're out walking the dog, or the actual moment that happens, they're really completely unaware of it. And what happens as soon as somebody starts trying to get pregnant is that they make that decision that that's what they're then going to do. They then stop birth control, and then they start trying really hard. So immediately their behaviour's changed, and then they start watching every little thing, which makes them very stressed, doesn't it? And and then month after month of heartbreak if they haven't conceived that month. And I know now people seem to go to the doctors either before they start trying to have a baby, or much quickly in that process. Whereas I know, when I was kind of at that time when I was thinking about having a baby, it was the rule was then if you've not conceived within 2 years, then come and see us. But now it's much quicker, isn't it? And people seem to go down that medical route much more quickly. And I do wonder if they went through the more mindful route first, then they would probably be much happier, I think, as well, or even ready for fertility treatment. If that was the case, I think it's a huge psychological draw, isn't it? It's a drain, just a whole fertility journey, really. We see some very stressed and anxious people, and of course, that's the very thing that sometimes can stop them. I mean, I know sometimes it's other things that will stop people from conceiving. I always remember, the ladies that I've had tocophobia, the fear of childbirth, where that fear of giving birth, the actual birth process, and not being a mother, not being pregnant, but the actual birth process, once we cleared that, they got pregnant very quickly. Do you see lots of things like that with your clients as well?
Yes, and an interesting thing I see, trying to think of a way to put this tactfully, is bratty children. So many people, we've gone from children should be seen and not heard to children run the show.
Yeah.
And so a lot of children are, they don't go to bed and they do what they want, and they go out every day to get, whatever it is that they want, their McDonald's, or they want a toy, and mom drives all over town because they have the green one in this store, but she wants the blue one. That is something where I've seen other women say, like, I can't deal with the bratty child that is throwing the temper tantrum in the store. We that have kids, we've all had the temper tantrum in the store. It's also on us as to whether or not that happens a lot.
Yes.
And that I find just being able to reassure someone that, they just don't, the bratty children aren't just dispensed, that has to do with you as well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard these days because everybody's in these groups and they're looking for approval, and, they're asking Facebook for, someone wants to change a diaper, and before changing the diaper, they ask, they belong to the diaper changing group first off, and then they ask everyone, and then they get 5 different, ideas or suggestions, and then they just don't know what to do. So I find that there's so much need for approval and reinforcement that it's incapacitating people. And I have to sort of take it lightly in terms of children, but I really have seen that over and over again, where it is a fear of something. It's a fear of childbirth, or it is a fear of dealing with a child, or they see a baby that's crying in the restaurant and they think that the baby is going to do that 24/7, or
Mm-hmm.
they hear horror stories.
Mm-hmm.
And again, a lot of the horror stories have to do with the energies of the people involved, or particular circumstances, rather than being applicable across the board.
No, I agree. I agree completely. And I think there's that fear of not being good enough as well, isn't there? As being, you can be a really successful businesswoman or teacher or whatever it may be. But then, as a mother, people are often judged in a very different way. And then it's about how you manage that and how you juggle, the career and the family and all that kind of stuff. And I think people often worry that they won't be able to do that, or they're not good enough, or that they'll lose something. And I think, when people have a child, then obviously life does change. It changes completely. And there is part of it that's lost. There is, that, and that's something that people don't really talk about. But then you get the stuff that you gain, which, what's lost is replaced by something, and something more than the bit that was lost, if you like. But, I think it's that kind of, maybe those things that you just hear the horror stories about, rather than people just openly talking about it, which feed in, isn't it, to how people then, when they think about becoming a parent themselves or looking to conceive, they start to consider things that people 30 years ago didn't consider. They just decided they were going to have a baby, and then that's what they went on and did. Whereas now it's ticking, it's like a whole box ticking exercise that goes on in preparation for that. And you know, it's kind of almost like getting ready to conceive. And yet we both know, you know, we've seen, you know, lots of people that, you know, have leave very what would be deemed as unhealthy lifestyles that just do that. You know, they just get on and have babies and they don't really think about that stuff. And yet the people that are often really stressed about their health will often, you know, their ability to conceive will have issues because they're so stressed, despite the fact that they, you know, they're eating the spinach and the kale and the supplements and they're, you know, doing whatever it is that they need to do. So how, I guess a lot of the time it's when I say relaxing people down, I don't mean like in a progressive relaxation way, but it's almost getting them to relax in their minds about their ability to do something that, you know, our species has been doing for millennia. And, you know, it's that, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is. I mean, we have an inherent ability to get pregnant, to carry a pregnancy, to raise a baby. Humans think we're so smart these days. You know, we've got this prefrontal cortex. You know, we've got this evolved brain, and so we can overthink things. But you can't think a baby, and you don't need to. Animals, they know when it's the right time. And I've told clients, if your husband looks particularly delicious to you at any given time, I don't care if it's cycle day 3 or 8 or 12 or 28, I don't care. If he looks particularly alluring, then do something with that, because, you know, we are subconsciously or biologically programmed to be able to sense that. We've just sort of talked ourselves out of it. We've thought ourselves out of it. And it gets to be so mechanical. And I've had women say, well, you know, 28-day cycle, conceive on day 14. So we have sex on day 12, 14, 16. And I've said, well, what about day 17? What about day 10? And well, no, because that's not going to work. It's going to be, and I go, well, just try it. And I've had so many babies just come out of switching up the days.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's that confidence, isn't it? It's getting women to kind of get that, you know, this is how I feel, you know, this is how I feel what I want today, not, you know, can I today, because is it the right day? And actually when they tune into what their body's telling them, and even just the fluids and things that their bodies are producing at various times, often the signs are there, and they're not at the times when we've been taught. You know, I always say you can't medicalize nature, or you can't put it on a graph. You know, all of those things are averages, aren't they? So the average woman will ovulate on day whatever, but of course none of us are average, are we? So it's not as set in stone as we believe. So when people start to really listen to what their bodies are telling them, it makes all the difference, doesn't it? But it's that confidence again, isn't it? It's that confidence in their femininity and fertility, isn't it? That, you know, a woman actually knows her body better than anybody else, which, you know.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of been taught to not believe that. We sort of unlearned that. We're taught to dismiss the intuition and nature more so. I think that, you know, the medical world is amazing and they can do so much to help us. And at the same time, we can get so caught up in anything that we just lose all sense of ourselves. And if you look at women who are not trying to get pregnant, getting pregnant, and then as soon as women will say this, as soon as I started trying to get pregnant, I couldn't. And it's this pressure that this has to happen, and we are living in a want it right now society, and so we do expect it to happen quickly. And if it doesn't, you know, then we're just all over the place looking for whatever is going to help. And it's not to say these things won't help, but in some cases, I mean, I did have one client not too long ago, and I actually had to say to her, you know, you're not infertile, right? I mean, I don't use infertile because it's anti-hypnotic, but she was under the impression she had an infertility diagnosis, which she did not, because she had a friend who was an RE and had really been on her case, and she was in her 30s to freeze her eggs. And so when she was ready to get pregnant, because she didn't get pregnant immediately, she was getting drawn into having to go full-blown IVF. I mean, skip everything else, go straight to that. And I said to her, I said, you know, you don't have an infertility diagnosis, right? And she sort of looked at me, and then she conceived. She was pregnant by the next month, but it was a little waking hypnosis, if you will, to get past that idea that we're just all starting to think that we are infertile to start with. We just are.
I always remember, one of the great things when you work with fertility is, of course, people bring their babies to see you. And, the amount of women that I've had sat in this office with their baby that they've given birth to and conceived on them, telling me about, their infertility. And, you actually have to point out to them, you can't possibly be infertile because there is the proof gurgling away on your lap. And they're kind of, oh, yeah. It's... But even still, that diagnosis can stick, can't it? If you're, when they see themselves as that's the label, and it just shows you how unhelpful labels can be, even when all the evidence is there to the contrary sometimes. And it's an interesting one. I know I've had a few arguments with infertility doctors about using the term infertility doctors, because they're fertility specialists, aren't they?
Right.
So, they do an amazing job, but sometimes we have to reframe around for them a little bit for the positivity, I think. But that's our job. That keeps us in a job as well.
That's what we do, right? Because we respond to, we have the negativity bias in the brain, and so hypnotism is the quickest and most effective way to get around that. It is.
And you're right. It's about, dehypnotizing people and then rehypnotizing them into that belief, isn't it? That their bodies can, which actually makes perfect sense, because, that's the kind of natural state. We are naturally in a fertile state. It's all the other stuff that we do that can alter that. So it makes perfect sense to subconscious that that's what people are able to do. So where can people find out about the work that you do? You train hypnotists internationally, you have clients internationally. So where can people find about you and contact you?
Probably the easiest is the website, which is hypnofertility.com, nice and simple. And you can get the contact information, the phone number or email right from the website. And if you happen to have a copy of the book, the contact information should be there too.
Cool. Well, thank you very, very much for, I'm hoping this will be the first of many conversations that we'll have about hypnofertility, because there is so much to it. There's so many aspects to it. We've only really just scratched the surface talking about it for the past 20 minutes or so. So I hope you'll come on again, because I was very excited that you agreed to come on, and I hope we'll have you back on again soon. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Love to come back. I've only got a few thousand hours worth of stuff to talk about.
Wonderful. Perfect. So if you're enjoying what you're seeing here on Trancing in the Sheets, then remember that there are 8 of us that are putting together these wonderful shows for you with all kinds of guests from all kinds of backgrounds. In particular is Sean Michael Andrews, the world's fastest hypnotist, who does all kinds of fast and amazing things on his show. So don't forget to check him out and see what he's up to too. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.
Get ready.